Yeah. Least I can do. Much appreciated. I've been yelled at for clean. We're doing video? Great.
All right. Certainly was a fun game on Saturday. Proud of our guys' effort. Really appreciative to our fans who always show up and show out. Unbelievable job by them. It was a great atmosphere. It always feels good to be back in Autzen, and grateful for some former Ducks making a commitment to this next week, getting to have some young guys in the stands there with us, with Marcus and his foundation, Justin, Sabrina, all the work that goes on outside. Creating opportunities for others is part of what makes this place so great. So let's open her up.
Right here on the right, Zach.
You had it on Saturday, play with that Dante made where he, didn't force the ball in that third and goal. I'm curious after watching film, but are there any other moments that really stood out to you that showed his growth specifically in that game?
Yeah, I mean there was several. There were several plays. The big catch by Jay there over the middle, that was an opportunity for him to redirect the protection and slide it away from a load front, which is pretty unique. But he did a great job there and was able to hit an angle route there to Jay. But there were a lot of moments where the first read wasn't there, and you see him going through the progression and getting to his second read. Took care of the ball. There were very few ball in jeopardy type plays. I thought he made good decisions and looked really poised back there.
Here on the left, Matt.
Along those lines, he talked about you've been harping on him, take the easy stuff, and Stein has said that for years since he's been here.
Yeah.
What's that transition like, or that process like, of getting a quarterback to take the easy stuff and don't always go for the chunk play if it's not there?
Well, I just think it's important for coaches to celebrate moments when it isn't always the highlight reel play, right? And I think that when you're a young player, so often you feel like, hey, this is my opportunity to go make a play, and you almost force yourself to go make plays. And the reality is we need to celebrate the plays that are avoided, right? That could be bad for our team. And we had a lot of young guys play in this last game. I think we had close to 30 guys in our last two signing classes out there for us playing, which is huge, right? Speaking of the development and the people that we've been able to add to this roster. But when you have over 70 players play in a game, and then they're all developing and making good decisions, that's exciting.
On the right, Chris.
Yeah, looking ahead to Oklahoma State, with all the coaching turnover there, with all the roster turnover there, what are some of the challenges of scouting a team like that?
Well, certainly a lot of change. I've got a lot of respect for Coach Gundy. The guy's won 170 games. He's been one of the best in the business and adapted with times. I mean, anytime you're able to be somewhere, as long as he's been, I think he's only had 2 seasons where he didn't have winning seasons in his time there. So that speaks a little bit. Their culture, I think, it's derived from him and what they do. They've always been innovative, always been really good on special teams. So I think you have to look at that piece kind of holistically of like what's made those teams good in the past, and then recognize there's some changing parts. There's a new coordinator on offense, new one on defense, some carryover there on special teams, right? But a lot of new faces. But does it still carry the same flavor of what those teams have been in the past? And you're able to study film of where these coaches have come from, what they've done in the past. There's a lot of coaches on their staff that I'm familiar with that are really good. So it's going to be a fun challenge.
Right, left, James.
Commented on the block that DeCorian had, obviously, on Gary's touchdown. But when you look back and see the 2 that he had on the opening drive, and I'm sure others that you can see on all 22 that we don't on TV, how does that help set a culture in that room, Dan, when a freshman comes in and does that in game 1? And when that, yes, that's part of the job, but
it's awesome because it's not natural, right? It's not natural. And he did it, but several guys did it in that game. And I'm really proud. We talked about after the game, I'm really proud of the effort that our guys gave. Like, you want to see people play 100 miles an hour. And I thought we had a lot of guys playing 100 miles an hour on Saturday. But the way you block, again, tells me how much you love your teammates. And that guy blocked really hard, right? And there were several guys that blocked really hard on Saturday. And then we found some moments where, some of us were buying a ticket and watching other people make plays instead of blocking, right? And those are the moments we got to continue to get better at and make sure that we're connected at the end of plays. But that was something probably early in the season last year we didn't do as good of a job of, and that was a big emphasis coming into this game. And at times we were going to the right people, at times we weren't, but we were finding ways to be connected at the end of plays, which is huge.
Right here on the right, Zach.
A year ago, it took the offensive line a couple games to gel because of early injuries. You saw some early injuries in this game, but the offensive line didn't really miss a beat. What do you attribute that to, and how encouraging is that to see for you?
Well, I think one, it's attributed to the fact that we mix up our O lines a lot in fall camp and make sure we have different parts there, different pieces, because those moments can happen. So, we had guys that played right guard, guys that played left guard, guys that played tackle and guard. I mean, there was a lot of combinations you saw out there, and then obviously when you have the game at hand, you want to get experience. But I think you saw that. You saw the variety that gets pitched to our players in, really in practice, and then being able to go out and execute in games.
Back right, Aaron.
Despite the number of new players and coordinators in this program, what is the biggest advantage from a scouting standpoint from week 1 to week 2 when you have that full game under your belt that you can really dive into?
Yeah, it's just one game. That's the hard part, and especially when there's a lot of changes ultimately with the staff. So you're looking at one game and realizing that they've got a lot more than that one game, right? That you have to be able to adapt to, and the personnel you feel like you might know, but you really don't have a big enough picture yet to fully grasp who they are. But you do recognize that this team has an identity that we're about to play, right? And that's what shows up. Coach Grantham's defenses have always been really aggressive. Really good edge play. That always shows up. Some coverage commonalities in the way he does things there and what we do. And on offense, with Coach Meacham and Coach Gundy, they're going to take shots. They're going to spread you out. They're going to move with great tempo. So we get one game to look at, but I don't think it's really a full glimpse of who they are.
You're on the left, Matt.
Kenyon and Gary had to break a tackle for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Torian had to hurdle a guy for a first down on a third down. I'm sure running backs broke tackles. What do you make of your team just fighting through contact and getting extra yards or getting touchdowns after contact?
Yeah, we always celebrate that. I think Coach Stein and the offensive staff do a really good job of showing how many yards did we have after contact, in the game. And when we threw that stat up to this morning, going over with the players, it kind of threw me off because it told me that we weren't blocking well enough up front for them to, make those kind of yards initially, right? You'd like to think that you're blocking it well enough that you can go 5 yards without getting touched. But we had a lot of guys breaking tackles and creating, not going down on first contact, which is huge. And I saw that from freshmen all the way up to, veterans that have been playing for us.
How important is a guy like Dave Iuli in terms of being able to flip from one guard spot to the other and maintain the continuity on the offensive line and put everybody in their most advantageous positions?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Dave. I love Dave. He comes out to work every day, always has a smile on his face. He's a pleasure. He's always asking, what can I do to be better for the team? And we have a lot of unselfish play right now on our team, which is so awesome to see with new faces, right? Guys saying, hey, coach, can I go down to look team and give us a look, right? People that you'd never expect that from. And that's making us a lot better team, right? Which is awesome. But, Dave has been versatile, and several of those guys on the offensive line have.
We saw E-Man go down with the right knee, go to the locker room, and come back to the sideline. Just was there an update as to his status and if he'll be able to go this week?
Yeah, I feel confident he's going to be able to go. He was able to move around a little bit today. So part of it is where the game was at, and us also being able to evaluate it, make sure he's in a great position. But I feel good that he'll be back.
You mentioned that kind of the volume on both sides of the ball was a little bit shorter this weekend. How does that kind of give you an advantage for another team watching film on you guys?
Well, I mean, you can only break down so many plays, right? And we're running the same play over and over again. It's going to make it where there's not as much. And we do. We have a lot of volume. We change week to week. But if you don't reveal everything, then it's hard to prep for what they don't know.
You're on the right, Zach.
Or what James was saying, I was curious if you get updates on Dylan Gresham and Kavika Rogers and Theron Johnson.
Yeah, Dylan's going to be down for a little bit, precautionary, but he's not able to go right now. Who else did you mention? Theron should be back this week. He was probably in position where he could have gone and pushed through, but we want to get more practice reps. And then Kavika, we're still figuring that out where he's at. He's moving around the day, ankle deal, but I think he could be back on Saturday, may not be.
You mentioned the difficulties of prepping for a team with so many new guys. They had a quarterback, and then he gets hurt. What do you know about Flores, and how do you prepare for a scenario like that, where they bring in a new guy and then he gets hurt? You have to go after another guy.
Yeah, that's college football, right? So you got to prepare for what you see on film. The system is the system more than it is they're going to completely change what they do as a player. They have complements where the quarterback can run the ball or throw the ball, so they carry that in their system. Might make them a little bit more reserved to run the quarterback, based on that situation. But ultimately, like, you see a player that can play and execute in an offensive scheme that's tough to defend.
James? You mentioned the familiarity both you and Will certainly have with many members of the staff. As you go about preparing for them, Dan, since you did prepare for Doug's offense in the championship game a couple of years ago, how similar?
I wasn't there. I wasn't at Georgia then when they played at TCU.
Okay, wrong year.
And that was Garrett Riley calling the offense too.
Really, Mike?
Dang, James.
I got thrown off.
Got him, boys.
Yeah, strike him out,
Yeah,
throw him out. Well,
yeah.
Will has extensive knowledge of half their staff, give or take. Boy, hey, long weekend, man.
You're all right, man. Everything going good? You okay?
Yeah.
It happens, man. You don't make a lot of mistakes, so.
You know, it happens. It happens. I'll own it. Will knows a lot of guys over there.
Yeah, I know a bunch of them too, but I didn't coach against TCU in the national championship.
Thank you. I won't live this down. How much does that familiarity for Will with multiple members of their staff, how much does that help?
Yeah, I think the familiarity always helps, right? Like Coach Grantham was at Florida for a long time when I was at Georgia, so got to see that. And you know, there's several guys on their staff that I've been around as well. And then Will was around Coach Grantham at Louisville. Everybody changes and adapts with time. So even what he was doing, you know, this past week is a little bit different than what he did in his time at Florida. But yeah, familiarity certainly always helps.
You got a chance to go back and watch the film. What excited you about the young guys in the cornerback room, especially the two true freshmen, and then also Iffy getting his first start?
Yeah, I think again, I've always said if we have above the line play, we're going to try to make sure that we create roles and create opportunities, and you want that to happen, and you're concerned about what's the anxiety going to be like in the first game. What's this? You know, there's just new moments. Playing football in front of a filled stadium is a little bit different than playing in practice, and I thought those guys executed well.
Right, Zach?
In one of the fall camp documentary episodes, you highlighted Jay Harris and his pass blocking reps and how much that's improved. He had several of those chances in this game. Just curious the growth you've seen from him and just how encouraging that is.
You know, what was fun is, obviously we have a lot of talent at back right now, right? And a lot of people want to ask questions about that. But, like, what was great is I don't know how many carries Jay had. I know all, 7 of our backs had carries, right? Jay was an unbelievable teammate on the sideline. His enthusiasm, his energy, he's helping us on special teams. He was in on the play where, we blocked the punt. He was, he played multiple special teams. He had the big pass catch down the middle. Like, this guy's just focused and worked on getting better and better every single day. And his story is an unbelievable story. You guys don't even realize, some of the stuff that this guy's gone through to get to where he's at right now. So I'm really happy with Jay and the work that he's put in.
Back right, Aaron.
Kind of talking about some of those new players, the wide receiver, number 2, Terrell Davis. Just how does their offense kind of highlight him and what makes him a threat when you prepare for this week?
Yeah, this will probably be the team that we've played that takes the most vertical shots down the field, right? That to date that we've seen, and probably in my time here, like they're going to push the ball down the field, right? A lot of quick passing game and a lot of shots down the field, and he highlights that. They can line up fast. They're going to try to catch you off guard. If you leave somebody single covered, they're going to let their wideouts go have an opportunity to go win and, compete down the field for the ball. And he's certainly one of those guys.
James, trying again.
Promise it won't be about the 2023 season. For Harkey, he certainly graded out well from Pro Football Focus, for whatever that's worth. What stood out to you about his play? He certainly had some blocks even behind the play at times that were – there's a certain nastiness, I would say, to his level of play. What stood out to you?
Well, I think you said it, right? He plays O-line with a nastiness. He wants to finish blocks. He's a finisher. He's a a guy that competes every single day. I'm really, really pleased with Alex, and I still think like his best football is ahead of him. There's some moments that I think he wants to be able to have back, but you see a guy that's trying to finish people, which is the mentality you want of your offensive line.
Matt, on the left.
I always talk about you want to play as many guys as you can that are playable, but at what point do you shorten the bench and give guys a rhythm and rotations, or do you envision rotating as much as you did all year long?
Well, hopefully we can find a rhythm regardless of what we do, but yeah, that's certainly a part of it. You want guys to be warm when they're in and, to be able to figure that out. So that's a challenge, and that's something you always weigh as a coach.
Jeremiah McClellan was one of their first receivers off the bench on Saturday, but how much does him being able to make an impact on special teams, get some hands on some punts, impact him being able to get on the field on offense as well?
Yeah, one, to start for us on O or D, we expect you to be able to help us on special teams. But J-Mac has been very eager this year to help this team in any way that he can, and obviously he made a huge impact in the game. I think I've said it several times. He had a great fall camp. He's gotten better and better. We showed some clips of him running routes early in fall camp last year in comparison to this year, and it's not the same player. This guy's really improved.
Back right here.
What role does kind of the confidence that your team gained with the performance on Saturday have when you try and build off of that in week 2?
Yeah, I'm not completely sure. I mean, I think ultimately when you go out there and you execute, like that's going to build confidence in the plan. It's going to show you that the prep matters. You know, we talked about double down before the season starts. Doubling down on the process, it paid off. We're really focused this year on what can we control, right? Not really about the opponent, not about the things that are out of our control. And I think our team's done a really good job of that. And they were as eager as anybody to say, okay, what can we improve on this morning when we met with them?
We'll do 2 more, James and Matt. Mike Gundy spoke quite a bit today and mentioned a lot about how much the resources are here, a lot of spending on the team here, suggested the roster cost $40 million last season, and also said that non-conference scheduling perhaps should be more aligned with budgets. Just didn't know if, with all of those comments, if you had a particular reaction or thoughts about future scheduling or how much there may be a disparity between these programs.
Yeah, it sounds like there is. Listening to him talk, like I said, I got a ton of respect for Coach Gundy. Ultimately, how blessed are we to be in a place that's invested in winning? If you want to be a top 10 team in college football, you better be invested in winning. And we spend to win. Some people save to have an excuse for why they don't, right? And ultimately, like, he's a great coach. They've done an unbelievable job, but I want to be a team that's competing at the highest level. And we're really fortunate to be in that situation. So I can't speak on their situation. I have no idea, what they got in their pockets over there. I'm sure UT Martin maybe didn't have as much as them last week, and they played. So we'll let it play out.
Matt, last question.
I've often talked about how your staff likes to watch film each week of football across the country. Did you get a chance to watch any football, anything stand out outside of your game?
Yeah, like what you're saying, like what plays do we want to?
No, not plays, but just like
We watched some ball. Yeah, we got to watch some ball. Every week we always pull up explosive play cutups from college football. There's obviously not as much volume, from the week 0 games, but now the end of this week there was a lot of games played, and we're able to look at those, evaluate some other teams, what they're doing offensively, what are the new trends. I think you always have to challenge yourself to look to see what are the new trends in football, what's going to be really successful, what do you need to be prepared to defend, or what can you add to your arsenal on offense that's going to be tough for other teams to defend. So we watched a lot of ball, right? We're junkies. We enjoy it.
Thank you, Coach.
All right. Appreciate it.